French is an obstacle to Morocco's development, and we should adopt English instead. This is our subject for today's debate. And honestly, never have I once thought that the solution to most of Morocco's problems could be summarized within just one singular sentence. Yet, I have just said it out loud to all of you just now. How could a country advance and develop if its own use of communication is wrong and displaced? How could a country flourish, prosper, and thrive if it's still tied to its own dark past through their colonizer's language? But perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. Ladies and gentlemen, dear opponents, honorable members of the jury, welcome. Welcome to a trial that will determine the fate of Moroccan history's worst criminal, opponent, and enemy, the French language. A language, or in this case, a parasite that has latched ever so deeply into its host, our dear country, preventing it from reaching its own glorious full potential. Before we dive any deeper into the prosecution of this criminal, I would like to state the facts. Currently, French is Morocco's official second language, and it is the language used for most political, administrative, and economic purposes. Yes, instead of the English language, which is better than French in all of these areas due to its widespreadness and conveniences. What can I say? What a shame. Considering the fact that French is also the language of the colonizers that have imprisoned and crushed this country throughout its history and throughout the 20th century. Yet we stick so closely by it. When there is a better, more efficient option: English. Dear audience, we stand by you today in order to convince you, to free you, to make you see through the lies given to you on a daily basis. As a language, by definition, is the main way of human communication, and is meant to help and aid a country's development, not hinder it. So, what are we waiting for? Ladies and gentlemen, we will let you decide, based on what my colleagues and I have prepared for you today, whether French is truly guilty or innocent. We hope you make the right choice in order to achieve a today better than yesterday, and a tomorrow better than today. I rest my case, and thank you.
Before starting my intervention, I would like to answer the Prime Minister of the government team. French was never guilty, and French is never guilty, because Morocco had developed from his independence till now because of the French language. Then, dear audience, honorable members of the jury, members of the government, greetings. The topics of today's debate leads us on a great reflection about the situation of our society today. French is an obstacle to Morocco's development, and we should adapt English instead. My teammates and I are totally against the motion. The real question that we should all ask ourselves is the use of English for our own benefits, economically, strategically, and politically? Our answer is a big no. If the country is Morocco and the citizens are we Moroccans, so the use of English instead of French as a second official language, which means that we are going to use it in laws, school, hospitals, also in public places, is impossible for several reasons. First of all, Morocco is apart from the international legacy. Yes.
Dear Leader of Opposition, you provided no real proof other than a statement. How did French help Morocco's development, and how did it do it better than English?
Yes, because yes, French has helped Morocco a lot to develop, because since the period of the independence, French was the first country which has the more important relations with Morocco, and since the period of the independence, Morocco is still too attached to French. And every road you see in Morocco will gained by French, not by Morocco, dear members of the government. I was saying that using English instead of French is impossible because Morocco is still apart from the international organization of Francophonie that regroups countries choosing choosing French as their second language. Then, choosing French as their second language, then by the time French has become a huge part from our culture, French has become a huge part from our history, French has become a huge part from our institution, and if we want to just eliminate it in a blink of an eye, we couldn't, because we are going to lose a huge part from our institution and legacy. Then talking about the administrative field, all laws in Morocco, or the whole administrative field is maybe in Arabic or in French. There is no English involved. And if we want to change those laws from Arabic or French to English, the meaning may change. Dear members of the government, I'm just seeing you dreaming without thinking of the consequences. I'm just seeing you dreaming without thinking of the consequences on imposing on citizens a language they don't even master. Yes, French have helped us, and French was never guilty, and it will never be guilty. And then, I bet you if we want to take this new step, that Morocco will start over and over again, and Morocco won't develop choosing English as a second language. Thank you.
Dear audience, respected members of the jury, and my worthy opponents, hello. Words cannot describe how grateful and excited I am today for standing up and in front of you and debating over a subject that Moroccans have already been discussing about for years and years. However, any results were concluded. And that's because of some people who think that using English instead of French is a betrayal for the French Republic. And with no doubt, they always ended up bringing up Morocco's inability to take such action, which almost all the time changes into a discussion about Morocco's sovereignty or its lack thereof, when France's interests are on the line. I have been able to find out the reason why Morocco, a country that is heads and shoulders above most African countries in economic potential, is still using French as a language of technology, business, and education more than 60 years after it gained independence from France. Especially when French themselves are now learning English, in order to do business more effectively across time zones and cultures. So why us, Moroccans, have to isolate ourselves from the development growth of other areas just because some people don't want to refuse to admit that we are speaking the wrong language. With it, I mean that we should aim to fade out the French language as soon as possible. And at the same time, we should let the English language take its place as the second language of Morocco, since we all know that English is the key to be a strong, powerful, and successful competitor in the world's market. To many observers, the seamless transition from French to English is already taking place in Morocco, as it has become an urgent necessity with regard to the country's new global economic partnerships. Morocco now has 62 partnerships, and only a few of them belong to the French-speaking world. That shows how French is useless to our country's development. Moreover, Morocco's dependence on tourism requires a higher level of communication that only English can provide to improve global connections. In fact, tourism is an important source of revenue for the economy of Morocco. More than 12.9 million tourists visiting the country each year. And of course, without forgetting that English proficiency has a direct impact on both earning gains and employability. In a study about Switzerland, English language skills were found to influence earning gains in the labor market, and that the wage difference between those with English proficiency and those without it exceeds 30% for top-level competence and less for lower competence level. Another research by Wall Street English shows that 50% of English speakers reported a 25% earning boost because of learning English. So now, I am merely asking you, my dear opponents, to think again and again and ask yourself plainly why would you choose French as a second language, knowing that it only fails to accommodate the 21st century Morocco. Thank you.
Respected judges, opponents, faculty members and audience, greetings. I am here by humbly to express my thanks for your interest in the debate subject called French is an obstacle for our economy, for Morocco's economy. We should adopt English instead. As previously said, I am here standing against the motion, and if I have your permission, dear judges, I would like to begin by that. Dear judges, opponents, faculty members and audience, attach your seatbelt. Our plane will take off towards our destination, the year 1912. No one argues that the French language in Morocco is still the true official language. It's still the true official language of the state, in contrast to the Arabic language, which is an official language in constitution. The French protectorate settled on Morocco on March 13, 1912, after the signing of the French protectorate treaty on Morocco by Sultan Abdel Hafiz. As the protection period extended until Morocco gained its independence from France in 1956. This is the real reason and not the apparent one, dear audience. That explains why Morocco cannot, after 66 years of independence from France, abandon the French language, which has become its inevitable destiny, because it tackled this language from its mother, France. In its early childhood, beginning with from 1912, just as no one can get rid of the mother tongue that he struggled from his mother when he was young. Isn't it, dear opponents? That's exactly what I thought. France is Morocco's leading economic partner, with 35.1% of the total stock France's FDI in 2017. France is Morocco's economic partner with France is Morocco's leading foreign investor. Over the past 5 years, from 2014 to 2018, FDI from France has represented on average 21.3% of net FDI flows to Morocco. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is with such pleasure and excitement that I stand here more than ready for this debate. But before I start saying what I have to say, I'd like to thank our opponents for disappointing me today, because with all my respect and honesty, I was expecting more from you, some strong arguments, but what can I do? Dear audience, honorable members of the jury, if English is considered as the language of the future or the language of science, it is not by chance nor by coincidence, and I will prove that to you. According to recent estimates, 55.5% of all websites on the internet use English, while only 4% use French. In other words, you know in English simply means you have access to more than half of internet content. The Future of English by David Grodol, a guide to forecasting the popularity of the English language on the 21st century, estimates that 85% of international organizations now use English as one of their working languages. The data provided by Grodol confirms that English is currently used for publication in over 60 countries around the world. These statistics and reports calling for the recognition of English as the language of the future should be taken seriously. The problems that university students in our country have to face due to a lack of proficiency in English when they write research papers is striking evidence of the usefulness of English. Moroccan students who for many reasons did not study English extensively during their baccalaureate classes found it really hard to perform well in their university disciplines. Regardless of the courses they take, students at a certain level must have English proficiency because they often need to conduct research or cite references in this language. With English, students in all fields can benefit from a better understanding of new theories. Students at university who are studying Arabic linguistics, for example, have had to grapple with the fact that most of the sources about new linguistic theories are exclusively in English. They have been unable to come up with new research topics and enroll in graduate programs unless they understand these books written in English. In addition, because of its universal reach and abundance of information, English is the most powerful language on the planet. Therefore, Morocco should, or should I say must, reconsider its stand. Yes?
Can you talk about the infrastructure in Morocco? What infrastructure Morocco has? Because you're talking about universities. So?
Okay, my friend will answer that.
Okay.
Thank you. In addition, because of its universal reach and abundance of information, English is the most powerful language on the planet. Therefore, Morocco should, or should I say must, reconsider its stance on English in order to strengthen its educational system and gain access to the largest amount of information possible. The kingdom should use English as its medium of instruction in science subjects and as language for business, finance, and economics. Thank you so much.
To answer the POI,
when you lose a language and it starts to extend, it's like dropping a bomb on the Louvre. As Michael Cross said, dear audience, honorable jury, opponents, greetings. To have another language is to possess a second soul. Choosing a second language is a hard mission. It should be unique, memorable, and easy to understand. And this language for us Moroccans is French. Elegant, expressive, not like the old English language. Hard, complicated. English should replace French. It should be the second language of Morocco, as our dear opponents said. Why did they fabricate phones and laptops just for this mission? If you take just searching and exploring, if you take just 2 minutes from your time, you will find similar words. For example, brilliance. I think that English borrowed words from French. The point is, we're trying to find easy, better language for Morocco, and the answer is obvious. It's French. It's French. French is part of our identity, part of our history. It's our past, present, our future. Everything we see in our country is built by France, not the UK and the US. For example, TGV, trains, roads. French developed Morocco, led him to modernity, and guided him until he was developed now. Also, many of you use the French language in daily life, also in the school. All the scientific subject is explained in French, including math, physics, science. I guarantee.
Didn't you say earlier that French was imposed on you after the colonization? So why do you say that choosing a language is difficult? You didn't choose it.
I will talk about it later. Okay. Also, many of you use it in daily life. All the scientific subjects is explained in French, including math, physics, and sciences. I guarantee that if you're not able to understand and write with it, you would not get a good mark, unless the teacher was caring. It's true that English started to dominate the world, and I can see the impact on your dear opponents. They have colonized your brain. And here is a request for you, don't blind our dear audience. I will give you a simple example. Our dear country tried the past years to get away from French, but they found themselves being attached to it. And this new Minister of Education is repeating the same mistake, agreeing to jump straight into the English train that we don't even know. We are having trouble also with our colonizer language, and that has been controlling us for decades, and he's accepting us to switch the language. This new Minister of Education is expecting the impossible. As Einstein said, the famous physician, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Thank you.
Dear audience, dear member of the jury, my most respectful and cheerful salutation. I've been listening to our opponents very carefully, trying to understand their position painfully. But here I am still, wondering if they truly believe what they're saying. Because in that case, it would be, with all my respect, a disaster. It's sad to see, and even worse to hear, that Moroccans are saying what they're saying. Furthermore, believing it and defending it boldly. But what can I say to them if not wake up, open your eyes and think wisely? In other words, use your common sense. Dear audience, 4 days ago, November 18th, we all celebrated the Independence Day. Or allow me to translate it to you all in order to show its power. عيد الاستقلال. Didn't it ring in your ears? Wasn't it weird to hear? I mean, isn't it any more obvious? We are an independent country, yet we still use its old colonizers' language. I'm sorry, dear audience, but it doesn't make any sense, nor does their position or arguments, by the way. And dear audience, dear opponents, I'm sorry, we're not here talking about Moliere's language or Shakespeare's, but far from it. We are today watching a war between the international universal language, as my friend said before me, the language of science, internet, and economics, and the list goes on and on, English, and the language of our ex-colonizers, French. And let me tell you all that France did nothing in the past but hurt us. They colonized us, took what's ours, killed our people, and here is Morocco giving it more importance than it deserves. And do not get me wrong, I'm not saying French is a bad language or anything like it, because at the end of the day, every language has its own beauty and must be appreciated. But we are today talking about our country. Our country is good, our country's future. So it is, as a matter of fact, a priority issue. And that priority goes and must go to English. I'm sorry. Because French is an obstacle for Morocco's development, a wall that hides that bright future of ours. So we cannot give our past the power to define our future. Because as the saying says, you can't write the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last ones. So if Morocco wants a bright future, he should and must get over his colonialism past and adopt English instead. Dear audience, dear member of the jury, dear opponents, dear Moroccans, we cannot miss the train of development by remaining attached to our past. It is time for us all to move on. And by the way, dear opponents, dear member of the position, if easy is what you want, then let me inform you that you're in the wrong path, because English is the only right one. English is easier, and my friend will talk about it later. Thank you so much.
To answer you, my dear government whip, because we are Moroccans, and we do care for our country's good, and we don't want to make it go through the disaster you talked about. Dear audience, honorable jury, teachers, government members, greetings. We should replace French with English in Morocco. Is this a new kind of joke? Because according to your previous speeches, your opponents, you tell us that you have the ability to change everything Morocco has gained for 44 years in a blink of an eye. Well, are you really sure that 100% of Moroccans agree with that? Let me answer you, it's a no. Because knowing that we're talking about millions of people's future, and according to a British Council's report, only 74% of the Moroccan population agrees with that. But then, what about the other 26% left? They probably don't even know what English is, or what is it even about. Unlike French, it became something normal, something usual, especially after its deep penetration in the Moroccan administration, the Moroccan economy, and the Moroccan education system for years and years. But for our dear opponents, we should simply ignore this 26% and work for our own benefits as if they don't belong to the country, Morocco. Well, sorry. Plus, we can't sadly add a new language to the Moroccan's instruction system while we don't even master our tongue language, Arabic. There are millions of children out there growing up without being able to even form one single phrase in Arabic, let alone going into administrations and facing something they can't even read. What do you expect them to do, dear opponents? Sign randomly on everything they're given? And don't you think that there are these people who will gladly take a great advantage of these people? Well, Who do you think will manage the country's economy in the future other than these children who we're supposed to be forming instead of sending here, accusing the French language of being the only obstacle to our country's economy? And, yeah?
Dear opposition, we are here to inform people about how English is better.
Ouch.
Which are just speculating. How do you know for sure that these people will be taken advantage of?
Well, because since these people don't know what English is and don't know what is it even about, and there will be these people who knows everything about it and will adopt it, as you say, gladly, then isn't it obvious, like, as I was saying, instead of wasting time and money on changing languages, we should form people in other important fields, which will really, really help improve the country's economy and the country's state. Well, as you said, dear opponents, English is indeed the world's international language, but it's still not the most spoken one. English is as well the language of science, technology, and research. But as Moroccans, we should ask is the use of English the right choice for the country's own benefits while its people cannot adapt to it? Let me answer again. It's a no. According to the International Organization of the Francophone, 33% of Moroccans master French and use it on a daily basis for a living. And for our dear opponents, it's quite easy to suddenly upset these people's life because of what? Because English is now a trending language. Let me remind you that right after the independence again, activists called for an end of the French teaching and for the Moroccan system to be entirely Arabized. The country, however, failed to fulfill these objectives for the same exact reasons we're facing right now. And please, we're not willing to make history repeat itself in a negative way, are we? Thank you.
Before I start my intervention, dear Deputy Leader of the Opposition, you did not provide the statistics for all of the sources for all of your statistics, so can you please provide them next time? And to start, isn't the fact that Morocco being still attached to its colonizers a bad thing? Those roads that you mentioned earlier are the only beneficial thing provided by the French. Yes, maybe the French have helped us in the 20th century, I repeat, the 20th. But the world as a whole is developing and evolving. Yet here we are, stuck in the past. Choosing English is jumping on a train we don't know? Dear audience, we know everything we need to know. And proof of that is all these countries that either adopt English as their first or second language. And the proof is also their economics. Look at how powerful they are. Dear audience, calling for a solution without even knowing the problem is called whining. So thank you.
Dear audience, members of the government, honorable members of the jury, before starting, I want to answer the POI our dear members of the government didn't answer, unfortunately. Morocco do not have the infrastructure to adapt English or establish English as their second language. Yes, we do not have even teachers that can teach context in English. I'm not talking about English teacher, normal English teacher. I'm talking about teachers who are going to teach science, math, physics, history, and geography in English. Do we have them? Absolutely not. We don't have them. And if we want to look for them and to form them, we are going to waste time and we are going to waste money. In that way, Morocco won't develop. Morocco will start over and over again. And then I want to answer my dear the Prime Minister question. Yes, we choose French because after the independence, we tried to get rid of Arabic, but we couldn't.
Dear opponents, my team and I have tried to understand your position through your arguments. I don't even think we can call them this way, but sorry for disappointing you. Until now, we haven't heard from you any single logical argument. Of course, a part of you count that French is more elegant than English, a solid one. In that case, what can I say, dear audience, except for that Morocco is in a very bad hands. Thank you.
Dear audience, please don't allow our opponents' illogical ideas to disturb your mind. And let's face the reality from which we can't run away. French wasn't and is never an obstacle for our country's economical state's improvement. Because if it really is, then, dear opponents, how do you explain this little success that Morocco has gained through the years? To be real, without the French help, we wouldn't be seeing what we actually see in our country today. And dear opponents, instead of accusing French of being an obstacle to a bright future of our country, you would better to revise your arguments once again, because they are totally wrong and illogical. Thank you, dear audience.
Dear leader of opposition, I will say it again, complaining about a problem, proposing a solution is called whining. Dear audience, as I said earlier, English is the language of the future, economy, science, and list goes on. But I forgot to mention the fact that English is one of the easiest languages on the planet. Because first of all, it's easy to learn, and second of all, it doesn't have those complicated gender grammar rules, and has just much easier and simpler ways of conjugating verbs into different tenses, which means anyone and everyone can learn English in a very short amount of time. And we all agree that we as human beings always go for the easiest, most effective option. In this case, we're talking about English, not French. Thank you.
As a teenager, you're thinking that you're okay with choosing English as a second language because its accent attracts you, or you think that you're going to be accepted in the society. But in this debate, we're discussing about choosing a language in order to be spoken and accepted by all the residents, not to choose one in order to be considered as cultural. The importance of choosing a suitable language is to be understandable by everyone. We should think about others too, not to be selfish.
Little success. The deputy of leader opposition said, what a joke. We don't want a little success. We want a big development. But you know what? I've actually come to the realization, that some people get it, and some people simply don't. That some people defend the truth with facts, and others oppose them just for fun. But I've come to tell you all that the truth is incontrovertible. Malice might attack it, ignorance might deride it, but at the end, here it's still. The truth our dear opponents are afraid of. English and its power to lead us toward success, big success, and development. We can't, dear audience, we can't, my team and I, make it any more clear or any more obvious. English is the language of the world. English is the language of the future. English is the language of education, tourism, internet, and most importantly, the language of economics. So don't be blinded, dear audience, by their lies. Thank you. Well, to answer you, my dear member of the government, we never said that we should eliminate English in Morocco. We're just saying that it cannot replace French in Morocco. Well, switching from French to English is now the request that a lot of people, including our dear opponents, ask for, as all they think about is that English equals a bright future, ignoring the fact that it wouldn't always be the case, and without being aware of the consequences and the efforts it takes to suddenly change a whole country's instruction system and economy.
And to end today's debate about French being an obstacle to our country's economy and French being the solution, I'd say, dear audience, honorable jury, dear opponents, Morocco is not ready to change anything. It won't help make any progress. It will only destroy everything it has gained throughout the years. Dear opponents, thank you for your hard work, but to really realize the goals that you've been talking about in all your speeches, I'd say, sorry. Okay, it's okay.